Hello, 大家好，欢迎回到外媒看中国，我是安博仁。Hey you guys, I'm here today at the site of a really historic event that took place in my neighborhood right here in Shanghai, in the building right behind me, where 452 brave Chinese soldiers made a final stand against Japanese invasion way back in 1937. Now, unfortunately, they weren't able to stop the Japanese invasion, but they did provide a much-needed symbolic morale boost for the Chinese people during that hideous time. So today, come with me as we go beyond the propaganda and find out more about the little battle that took place as part of the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression. This is Reports on China. I'm Andy Borheim here at Shanghai's Sihang Warehouse. Let's get reporting. On September 2, 1945, the Japanese formally signed their surrender, ending World War II. What many people don't realize is that Japan's surrender that day, 80 years ago, also ended the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression. China played a major role in the global defeat of fascism, but it came at a massive price, with China suffering over 35 million casualties. From 1931 until 1945, Japan relentlessly attacked and occupied parts of China in an attempt to subjugate the Chinese people and expand their empire in Asia. That time saw many hideous atrocities committed by the Japanese forces against the Chinese inside their own country, including the Nanjing Massacre in 1937, where China's then capital was decimated by a 6-week rampage of mass murder, rape, and destruction. 80,000 women were raped, and up to 350,000 Chinese lost their lives. And then there was Unit 731 in Harbin, a covert biological and chemical warfare research unit where the Japanese conducted horrific experiments on Chinese men, women, children, and babies, including live dissections without anesthesia, deliberate infection with deadly diseases to study their effects, and being stabbed, shot, or burned with new weapons to test their effectiveness. Those are just two of the hideous examples of Japanese atrocities against the Chinese, which the Japanese government refused to apologize for to this day. But there was also an incident right in my neighborhood in Shanghai, where the Japanese attempted their final takeover of the city and were humiliated by the bravery and perseverance of the Chinese. That incident began here at the Sihang Warehouse on October 26, 1937, as around 450 Chinese soldiers barricaded themselves inside this building and made one last stand to defend Shanghai. But first, it's important to understand why those Chinese soldiers chose the Sihang Warehouse. Back then, a large section of central Shanghai was occupied by the British and Americans, an area known as the International Settlement. The Sihang Warehouse was located just across the Suzhou Creek, meters from the edge of that settlement. Now, that meant two things. Firstly, that the warehouse was in full view of foreigners and the world's media. And secondly, that it was so close to the settlement that Japan didn't dare attack using missiles or artillery from their navy, stationed just miles away on Shanghai's Huangpu River, for fear of hitting American and British-controlled areas. So this side of the Suzhou Creek, where I live today, was considered China, while the other side was foreign and considered a neutral safe haven. Thousands of Chinese citizens, fearing for their lives, tried to flee the Chinese side and enter the international settlement, but most were turned away. Only those with connections or wealth were allowed in, and the others were left open to murder by the invading Japanese. Back at the Sihang Warehouse, the 452 soldiers were pummeled for days on end by 20,000 Japanese troops, using tanks and arson attempts, all while the world's media watched on from across the creek. By the time they finally withdrew a few days later on November 1, Japan had already experienced an embarrassing defeat on the world stage. Around 10 Chinese soldiers died during the battle, while up to 300 Japanese soldiers were killed or wounded. Unfortunately, China's brave resistance against invasion at the Sihang Warehouse couldn't stop the Japanese from taking over the city, which they finally achieved on November 12. But that show of force was an important moment for Chinese pride during a hideous time, giving a symbolic morale boost for the Chinese as they faced atrocity after atrocity at the hands of the Japanese. As we all know, the war finally ended when Japan formally surrendered on September 2, 1945, which the Chinese celebrate as the anniversary of victory in the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression. Today, the battle scars remain at the Sihang Warehouse, and an extensive museum is open to the public, free of charge. So if you're ever here in Shanghai, this place is a must visit. While the West celebrates the end of World War II, don't forget the 35 million Chinese who died and the countless others who suffered, helping bring that war to an end.